COVID sucked, like, a whole lot. But regardless of everything, I still think a lot of good came out of it, especially for creative people. All that time of just sitting in your room doing nothing, I think really gave people the chance to put a lot of passion into their work. And The Last Clockwinder is a game that fits this narrative perfectly. Coming out in mid-2022, this game continues to bring in great reviews, and everywhere I look, I see players praise it time and time again. So naturally, I had to ask, what makes The Last Clockwinder so good? The Last Clockwinder is a puzzle automation game, where the main goal is to farm fruits with robot clones of yourself and prevent the clock tower from sinking into the ocean. Now, something I didn't expect is that this game is actually like 60% lore. And I'll go over this more later in the video, but this game is like less of a game and more of an experience. So there are like little pockets of video gaming going on, but most of it is just there to tell the story. And retelling that story is exactly where I'd like to start. The Last Clockwinder, like most games, just starts out by info dumping with a cutscene. We're met here with a nice view of the clock tower when a woman starts speaking to us. She tells us that this is the clock tower and that she is the Clockwinder. Her job is to keep the rising water levels out of the clock tower and protect everything inside. But she also talks about like her higher goals in life.
The clock tower needs its Clockwinder. Every day I get up and pump out the rising water. If I don't, the tree and all the precious plants it protects will be lost forever. But the Clockwinder is only a person, and people make mistakes. So I've made a decision. I will be the last Clockwinder.
Right off the bat, we learn a ton about this woman. Despite being one herself, she hates humans. She believes that because people let emotions drive their decisions, they're prone to doing the wrong thing or making mistakes, and that they should not be left doing important things, like running the clock tower. She wants to remove the chance of mistakes by automating everything and removing humans from the equation. This is an ideology that sticks with this character throughout the story, and as we move along, we'll see that this is her main driving force. It's what keeps her going. Shortly after, we're introduced to another woman, who I think we just have to assume was flying by the clock tower.
Levi, I picked up a distress signal from the clock tower. It's sinking.
I thought you were through with that place a long time ago.
But if something's happened to Adia...
I'm too old for this, Jules.
Please, Levi. I'm not letting my home go without a fight. Not this time.
Fine, but I get to stay in the ship.
This is actually our main character, Jules, and she does drop a couple names here that I'm just going to go over now to save time. Levi, the man that she's talking to, is an old friend of Jules, and they've been traveling together for who knows how long. And then Jules kind of alludes that like Adia was the last Clockwinder. Ooh, what a mystery. 10 minutes later, we find out that's true. But she also says a lot about herself and her motives. She used to live at the clock tower and obviously doesn't want it to sink. Or worse, something to happen to Adia. And one smooth-ass transition later, the game begins. We spawn on this balcony just outside this huge door leading into the clock tower. Levi calls us on the radio and lets us know that he's around somewhere and wishes us luck. We then enter the clock tower, and the door slams behind us. This room is the tutorial, and I think it's handled very well. It focuses on like exploration to teach you instead of just text boxes. And at the very end of this room is a little altar holding a pair of gloves. Putting on these gloves will give you the ability to summon these cute little robots that'll copy your actions on a short loop. This is the main gimmick of The Last Clockwinder. And like I said, we'll circle around to the gameplay stuff later. But for now, you can use your new abilities to solve a couple puzzles and open the windows on the clock tower. The entire area is covered with beautiful plants and flowers. Windows fill the walls, and right in the middle we can see the inner workings of the clock tower. If you look under the staircase, you can find a little reading nook. There's a recording left here from way back when Jules used to live here. This is where we can put two and two together and realize that Jules was actually here with Adia. They talk about this plant that they can make tea out of. Anyways, the main takeaway from that recording is that Adia and Jules, they used to be chill. They used to be cool like that. Wander around a little bit longer, and we can actually find another recording upstairs.
Every plant in the clock tower needs protecting. Take this one. On Zanasha, it could grow 20 feet high.
You're messing with me.
I don't mess, Jules. It was their staple crop. Until they screwed up the ecosystem and killed it off.
What?
People get things wrong. A Zanashan farmer sent seeds here. These might be the only surviving samples. Here, try.
Yeah, it's bitter. They ate this?
They loved it.
Ugh.
There's no accounting for taste.
I think this recording is great because it characterizes Adia really well. We can see that even from early on, she wants to get rid of these human mistakes, but I don't get the feeling that Adia hates people. So even though Adia might want to replace man with machine, or at least just in the clock tower, she doesn't actually have anything against people in general. This immediately makes Adia a super in-depth character, and shout out to the writers for getting all of that out in 20 seconds. But getting right back on track, if you look next to this tape recording, we'll find this red key. Put it into the little slot next to the globe, and you'll unlock the next room. And I love this. The way we move through rooms in this game is just by dropping the floor down and swapping it out. This key brings us to the Blusher Gardens. And this is where we learn the basics about harvesting fruit. Get the fruit into the juicer, pull the lever, get juice. But why harvest fruit? What's the point? Well, if you get the next key, we can actually see that the next room has a paywall. So we need to harvest fruit efficiently to move on to the next stage. 15 blushers is not expensive though. But we can't move on until we listen to the recordings.
This one is a houseplant. There was a Tokaran family that would gift a cutting whenever they welcomed in someone new.
And they sent one here? Is it rare?
No, they're practically everywhere. This one was just special to them.
What happened?
Clockwinder Rowan, my predecessor, their notes didn't say. One of them sent the plant here after her wife died. She couldn't bear to keep it. But she couldn't abandon it either.
That's so sad.
But as long as it's alive, that family isn't forgotten. Isn't that wonderful? This place lifts that burden from others. We remember when they can't.
Adia drops some bars in this one, I won't lie. It's a really sweet message that a plant as simple and common as the blusher can have such a nice backstory, and even be given the job to preserve someone's memory. We also learned that there were a ton of other clockwinders, and that this tradition of preserving plant life has been going on for seemingly generations. But the lore does not stop here. Our next room is Locker 229C. This room is all lore, and here we learn a lot about Jules' past. The first tape we come across is one of Adia being excited that today is delivery day. And we learn that Levi is actually the one dropping off shipments to the clock tower. But today's shipment holds a surprise.
Delivery days are the best days. What have you brought me this time, Levi? What's this? Oh, yes, Levi. You came through. Vincent Raymond's instant noodles. I'll be eating you for weeks. What are you doing in my noodles?
Is this Navoko? This isn't Navoko, is it?
No.
For whatever reason, Jules just hops into this huge box of ramen noodles, hoping to be dropped off at Navoko, but just ended up at the clock tower. But Adia and Jules just kinda hit it off. Adia explains everything to Jules, where she is, what the clock tower does, and that she won't be able to leave until Levi comes back in 6 months. Adia is understandably not thrilled about this. She has a ton of work to do, and having a 9-year-old run around does not help. Jules, on the other hand, is very indifferent to this. Even though she's not anywhere close to where she wants to be, she just doesn't care. And now Adia's in this weird position where she needs to try and preserve all of known plant history and take care of this 9-year-old that's stuck there for 6 months. Anyway, by now you should have more than enough blusher juice to open that big door we came in the beginning. And immediately Levi hits you up on speed dial. This guy has nothing important to say. We do find the next key here, and we're left with this big goal to find the pump to get all the water out of the clock tower. Hold on, wait, it's right there. This cool frog thing is the pump, and it's what keeps the clock tower from sinking. We learned that it uses bomb berries as fuel, but it also costs 2,000 blushers to open, so we got a little work to do. The next key we find unlocks the Blusher Laboratory, where we can do some funky science stuff and make more blusher seeds. Use those to grow more blushers and to make more juice, so now we can really sink our teeth into the bomb berries. We're first introduced to them in this Storage Locker 229C looking ass room, and there is surprisingly a gardener here. We learn here in a recording that the bomb berries actually pop after holding them for too long, and that's why they're used as fuel. With some trial and error, we start to produce bomb berries. But that's not really what we need. We need these bomb berries to get to the pump room. So, back to the lab. In this new room, we can produce bomb berry seeds that we'll bring back to the pump room, grow them there. Now all we have to do is spend a couple blushers to turn it on. But before we do that, I do want to sidetrack to this other room. The sunroom is entirely lore-based. We do find like some seeds and a key here, but nothing else. The recordings in this room really do stand out.
Why do they call you the Clockwinder?
This is the clock tower.
Well, why is it called that? Shouldn't it be the clock tree or just the tree, and you should be the pump worker?
You see the clock on the wall? Clock tower.
But you've never once wound the clock.
If the clockwinder needs to wind the clock, something's gone very wrong.
That doesn't make any sense.
Let the tree have her secrets. She moves in mysterious ways.
And I'll be honest, there's not a lot to this recording, but I still really like it. It certainly shows us the curious side of Jules and how she just asks questions to pass the time. Especially from this one, I think that Jules quickly learned to love the clock tower and take interest in all that it has to offer. It seems like the two of them are really getting along by now, and it's sweet. Levi calls shortly after, and Jules reminisces about all the recordings she keeps finding.
Well, how does it feel to be home?
Oh, it's fine.
Fine. You know you can talk to me.
I said it's fine. No one likes to hear how whiny they sounded as a kid is all.
Oh, you've been listening to those old recordings.
Yes, I'm amazed she kept them around. Okay, I have missed this place. A lot. I was here for, what, 4 years? And then, well, you know how things ended. I just hope we're not too late.
Well then hop to it, my little tadpole.
Ugh.
Go see if you can coax some life back into your froggy friend, and maybe he'll oblige in getting that water pumped out.
So now we know that Jules didn't actually leave with Levi after 6 months, and that something terrible must have happened between her and Adia, and that's why she left the clock tower. And in fact, in the Bomberry laboratory, there's a recording of Jules refusing to leave with Levi.
Here in 2 weeks, you can finally head home.
I want to stay.
You've been here 6 months, Jules.
But I do all your dishes.
No.
It doesn't have to be forever.
No.
Just now that you have your frog project, your frog-ject?
That's not... We're not calling it that.
Could you use an extra pair of hands? I can go to Navoco on the next supply ship.
Fine.
Adia is hesitant to let Jules stay at first, but is also easily persuaded. Things seem to be going so well, so what could possibly cause Jules to leave later? I mean, we just saw a recording of them having a great time, and things really started to look up, but now we learn about this? But there's no time to dwell on this, we gotta get that pump working. And after spending 2,000 blushers, the frog clicks and opens its mouth. With those seeds we got earlier, we can grow the bomb berries here and throw them in. Once that tube on its back fills up, the whole thing kicks into gear and the pump starts working again.
Jules, you there?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, the pumps drain the water from the middle levels.
But
The water already reached the root collar. And the tree's still sinking.
crap. Damn it.
I'm sorry, Jaybird. I always thought it was a stupid place for a tree. If the clock tower's so important, why stick it in the middle of the ocean?
I asked Adia that same question. She made it sound like the tree just dropped out of the sky or something. Wait.
What?
She said that the tree hadn't always been in an ocean, that it moves in mysterious ways. Levi, do another scan.
Okay, what am I looking for?
Fuel lines, drive systems, anything that might be an engine. I might be going nuts here, but I think it's a ship.
The tree?
Just humor me, okay?
Fine. Scanning. Right, I'm seeing... Holy cow, I think that's a drive charger.
Yes!
There's no way this thing's gonna get off the ground. The roots run right into the ocean bed.
Well, then we'll find a way to release them.
Here. The roots link up to a machine on the middle levels. They should be clear of water now, so you can get access.
Great. I'll start there. See if I can find that machine and get the roots clear.
And then we just have to figure out how to fly a tree.
Great, we got a way to get all the water out of the clock tower and save it from flooding. But now we have a new problem. It's sinking into the sea floor. So we need to find a way to retract the roots and free the clock tower. And this all starts in the lily pad room. And here we have the dew-shot fruit. It's a fragile fruit that breaks whenever you touch it. So the only way to transport it is through these lily pads. We get a lot of character development in this room too. In the recording for this room, we hear Adia figuring out a formula for fertilizer.
Mixture 247B, 38% nitrate, 12% magnesium, remainder trace. Stop distracting me, I'm in the zone.
Last time you were in the zone, I got woken up with a face full of water fruit.
Well, that was just a minor calibration issue.
I'm going to bed. You should too.
Night, mixture 247C, 37% nitrate, 11% magnesium, remainder trace. Oh, there! Uptake's good. This is it. See? Sometimes you just need to work hard to get the job done.
If you'd done it in the morning, you'd have figured it out quicker.
And believe it or not, I think this recording actually says a lot about how these two see the world. Adia feels that with enough work, you can do anything, where Jules is more of a just be patient and it'll all work out kind of person. And this goes hand in hand with their personalities. We get this very go with the flow kind of vibe from Jules, and a much more logical demeanor from Adia. And it's these little consistencies that make these characters feel like people, or like someone you could relate to. And something else to note is that neither of them are wrong. It's just a difference in ideals. And this is even something that Jules herself comments on.
How did Adia handle this place? She'd be, what, into her 70s now? Jeez. Yeah. Levi, we haven't found her yet. That's good, isn't it?
You really thought she'd still be here? I mean, if she was, we'd have found her sitting right there in the nook.
Yeah. I keep catching myself glancing over to see if she's done reading.
I know, partner. I know. I miss her too.
It's not that. We didn't exactly... Fine. Yeah. I miss her. She was a crotchety old lady who'd rather live on her own for 30 years than learn to accept that people aren't perfect. But she was my friend. My first friend.
And I let this recording run on a little bit because I think it holds even more characterization. It's kind of spelled out for us, but it's clear that after Adia and Jules had their falling out, no grudges were held. At the very least, Jules still wants to reform her friendship with Adia, but her hesitation kind of shows us that Adia might not be ready. I also see a little characterization for Levi here. I very much get the vibe that Levi's like this big, stereotypical blue-collar guy, like myself. But unlike Jules, he's very quick to admit that he misses Adia, and he's sad she's gone. But as we move along, we'll see more and more that Levi is actually a very kind and caring person. Very atypical from your blue-collar worker. Since we can't touch the dewdrops, we do have to jump through a couple hoops to harvest them, but eventually we make our way over to the badger tails.
Lots of mold.
We learn that these squash-looking things are carnivorous, and that they're new to the clock tower. This is exciting for Adia and Jules, a new plant to learn about and experiment with. Jules is curious as always and wants to help, but Adia has a weird response.
It's a cannibal plant?
No, the plant isn't made of meat, but yes, it seems carnivorous.
Oh, can I do this one?
No! Sorry. New plants are fragile.
No need to bite my head off.
I know. I can't afford to get it wrong.
It's okay. You're trying your best.
Trying is not always enough.
Not what you would expect. You wouldn't say that to a 9-year-old who just wants to help. It's rude. But I do want to point this out because Adia's whole fear of imperfection and her goal of removing mistakes is deeply set in insecurity. This gives Adia's ideals even more backing. Although not a great reason, a reason nonetheless to believe what she believes. And it raises more questions too. Like, what happened in Adia's life to cause her to be so insecure? That we'll never know. But we do get to see this insecurity really shine through in our next recording.
Oh no, 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 no! Hadia!
What's happening?
Something's wrong!
The pump's offline.
Is it the frog?
Yes! Shh! Damn, the water's coming in already. Oh, if I can't get it back up, it's gonna...
I know! I'll redirect the...
Get away from that! You aren't going to do anything. I am going to fix this. Oh god, this could take weeks.
But if I can just...
No, Jules, no. I need to
If you switch
figure out...
the input over to the badger tails, then it
That'd
would...
make it worse! Damn it, I don't have time for this. Sit over there and keep quiet.
But I can...
Enough! Gosh, I should never have let you stay here. Let myself get distracted, and look where we are.
This isn't my fault.
But it's time for you to go. The Dune Hound will be here in a couple of days. You're going. Now let me focus.
This is Adia's worst nightmare. Somewhere she made a mistake, and now the pump's failing, and all of her life's work is sinking, literally. Adia's panicking. She has no idea what to do. She's not really thinking straight. She actually sends Jules away to prevent this from happening again. And it's not Jules' fault. She didn't do anything. This is just Adia trying to find some way to gain control of the situation again. Fixing the pump would take way too long, so her only other option is to take it out on Jules. And I think this is the breaking point. This is what caused Jules to leave the clock tower. But now that Jules is older, she sees things differently.
Everything okay down there?
Yeah, Not really. I've never forgiven her for turning on me like that.
I think how she treated you sucked, plain and simple. You have every right to hate her.
Yeah. But hearing it now, I don't think I can. She was scared. She'd made the mistake she always feared. She wasn't even blaming me. I see that now. She was blaming herself. She was so scared of failing that she couldn't forgive herself for forming a connection with someone. I wish I could tell her it was okay.
To do that though, we need to get to the root nexus, which costs badger tails. So, after a little chemistry, a little botany, and a ton of robot labor, we can finally make our way to the root nexus. We're met with this big machine, and I'll keep it real, it's kinda lame. I mean, we got a frog for the pump, dude. You couldn't do like an alligator, or like a shark, or a
Whale? I love whales.
No whales. No. Anyway, it won't be done before you leave.
Leave. Right.
This machine stays a mystery to us, but only costs 10 juice to start up, so why not? 4 huge bells just pop out the back of this thing, and we are given 0 instruction. But tool around a little bit and find out you can ring them by throwing blushers at the bells, and after you ring all 4, something changes.
Well, have you done something? Vibrations just started hitting the roots like crazy. Huh. Maybe you were right about it being a ship. Maybe get some rest. Who knows when you'll get another chance.
With the roots now retracted, the tree is unstable and prone to falling over. It's important we get to the fuel generator as soon as possible. To do so, we first need to start harvesting luft apples. These are a really unique fruit that float when detached from their stem. And to accommodate for that, we get these really tall and complex rooms to harvest them in. It's a delicate process, but eventually we get to unlock storage locker 817F. This room, like the other storage locker, is totally lore-based, but this time with only 1 recording.
After this, are you done for the day? I found a new path across the roots where you can get really far.
You know I don't like walking the roots.
Aww.
We could take a short walk. A careful walk. And then come back and listen to music?
Yes! Yes. That would be nice.
I really like this one just for the metaphor of the roots. The roots of the tree are supposed to represent like how these two approach life. Jules' fascination with them shows that she's very adventurous. She's not scared to walk along them and wants to see how far she can get every time. Adia, though, is a total opposite. She hates the roots. She likes it inside the clock tower, where it's familiar and safe. She's very cautious. And yes, of course we already know this, but even though it doesn't tell us anything new about their character, it does show us something about their relationship. Opposites attract, right? Adia is still willing to go out onto the roots just because she knows it'll make Jules happy. In the storage locker, we also get the key to open the fuel generator. But damn, that cost a lot of luft apples. But that's not a problem. We'll head over to the laboratory so we can craft up some seeds and double our production. Well, hang on, there's a recording here.
Levi's ready. He'll get you to Terminus, and from there, Nivoko, or wherever you want. I need to get back to work.
I don't want to go.
You were never going to stay.
Why can't I?
Jules, we're not doing this again. You've talked me around often enough, but it's time. You can see the galaxy, finally get to Nivoko, see the whales.
Screw the whales.
Jules.
I don't want to go to Nivoko. I don't want to see anything. I just want to stay here. I can help you. You can train me. I can be the next Clockwinder.
No. I let myself get distracted and... never again. I'm going to fix this alone.
What? Bro, this room was bad enough I had to go back to 9th grade chemistry to do this, and now you're dropping this bomb on me? What the hell? This is a pretty heavy recording. This takes place just before Jules leaves with Levi, and Adia, I think, is feeling a lot of conflict here. You can hear it in her voice. She doesn't want Jules to leave, but also believes it's the right thing to do. At the end of the day, she values her work at the clock tower more than her relationship with Jules. And to Adia, at least for right now, working in the clock tower and maintaining a relationship is just impossible. It can't happen. And this is something I think Adia has believed for a long time, even before Jules came to the clock tower. And I think that's why she was so quick to just jump to getting Jules out of there. After the pump, Adia sees letting Jules into the clock tower as a mistake. And we all know what she thinks about that. But when we look over to Jules, once again we see that these two are total opposites. Jules doesn't see their relationship and their work as separate. She believes that both can be maintained at the same time. She wants to stay to work things out and find that happy balance, to fix their mistakes. And then this all feels very unfair to Jules because she's trying to do the right thing, but Adia just won't let her. And that's why Jules feels so betrayed, and why even to this day, neither of them can really quite put their finger on what went wrong. And if we circle back to the end of the recording, we do see that Adia blames herself and wants to fix everything just alone. And this is even worse for Jules because now she knows they want the same thing, but Adia wants it without her. The whole situation's just kind of messed up. But it's like they say, past is in the past, and we gotta focus on getting this tree safe. It's not easy, but eventually we harvest enough luft apples to open the generator. And right off the bat, it looks really weird. It's just all open with these pipes coming out the floor. It's nothing we've seen before. But as we explore, the machine in the back starts to move. Oh.
Did you...
Levi. It's a whale.
What?
The fuel system is a whale. Adia made it a whale.
Wonder when she built it.
After my time, that's for sure.
So, what kind of fuel does a giant tree that's also a spaceship run on anyway?
Fruit.
Seriously?
Yeah. This must be where all the fruit ends up. Something's wrong, though. The tubes are blocked. I think you need something to unclog them.
Well, looks like you need to figure out how to get him...
No! Levi, don't you dare!
Juiced up.
Levi!
So, now we have a new objective. We need to find a way to unclog all these pipes so that all the fruit we've been harvesting can funnel into this room. Eventually, we find a note left near a bunch of keys, and we'll start there, but first, I want to talk about the whale. Something I haven't really talked about yet is that because we see everything through Jules' perspective, we have no idea what happens to Adia after she leaves the clock tower. We know how Jules feels about everything after leaving the clock tower because we play as her. But we get nothing from Adia, except for this whale. Adia specifically built this machine in the shape of a whale because she missed Jules. And as a way to remember her, she built the one thing Jules always wanted. And this shows me that Adia actually regrets letting Jules leave. And I think it's neat how we can sort of piece all this together just through one machine. But okay, moving back to these keys. Each of them opens a room named Medicine, and numbered for convenience. They're all pretty similar to each other. Use a million clones to make complex molecules out of a bunch of different fruit, crush those molecules into seeds, and use that to make big pills. Once you have all three, you can feed them to the whale, and the pipes start flowing. This is the final stretch. We're so close to getting this clock tower somewhere safe and preserving all the work that's been put into it. It's all very exciting, but it still raises a big question.
Will it still need a clockwinder?
Yep.
So, are you going to step up?
Are you kidding? I love this place, but that's a lot of responsibility.
Isn't it what you wanted?
Well, what did you want when you were a kid?
I wanted to fly spaceships. Now, I fly spaceships.
Fine. Bad example. My point is, do you really think I'm ready to spend the next 30 years on some isolated planet?
I thought that was part of the deal. Gotta keep the plants safe, right?
There's gotta be a better way. It's so much to ask of just one person.
Well, I guess what comes after comes after. Let's just get the job done.
I'm in the same boat as Levi. I 100% thought Jules was going to take over the clock tower like nothing ever happened. Happily ever after, right? But Jules is right. Running the clock tower is a ton of work. And she saw what it did to Adia. It consumed her life and forced her to push everything else to the side. I don't think Jules really wants to live a life like that. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right now, there is a lot of produce being wasted. These pills not only unclogged the pipes, but also started producing these honeycomb-looking things. And we never get an explanation as to what they are, but we do know that they can hold an infinite amount of fruit in one little ball. And using them, we can just start dumping fruit into the whale, like so much. And after it's fed a nice hearty meal, water will shoot out of its blowhole, and at the top is a key. This is Adia's workshop. This is where she designed and built everything for the clock tower. The gardeners, the frog, they were all conceived here. And similar to the storage lockers, it is all lore-based. So, let's not waste time, we'll get into it. There are 2 recordings here, but really they're more like one. They're meant to be played right after each other. And these were left behind specifically as a message to Jules from Adia. We learned through these recordings that Adia eventually leaves the clock tower too. And these recordings are here to kind of sum up her thoughts of everything.
The clock tower used to be in a desert. Clockwinder Rowan struggled to get enough moisture from the ground to keep it watered. They thought it would fare better in an ocean. Before that, it was in a rainforest. The Clockwinder had to fight off parasitic wasps. The tree is always running out of time. I thought I was smarter. Why not replace the fallible human Clockwinder with an army of perfect gardeners? Gods, I was a fool. You can't learn from your mistakes if you just repeat them over and over and over. Jules, I suppose I should start addressing you directly, if I'm right, if you followed my signal. I always said Clockwinders should know when to step aside. I think that might have been a long time ago, actually. You were right. The clock tower needs a Clockwinder, and I can't be that anymore. You can, if you still want to. The clock tower's gonna need a lot of work. Probably a new home as well. You should take it somewhere. You should do whatever you think is right. I can't stay. I'll go to... Who needs a stubborn old engineer botanist anyway? Nivoko. Why not? You were always talking about it. Nature parks, huge lakes. Sounds like a good place for a botanist. Good place to figure out what happens next. Oh, it'll be strange to leave. Maybe I'm being naive about you following my transmission. But I think you will. Goodbye, Jules. And good luck.
So much change happens here. Throughout this story, Edea has been consistent. She's been devout to her beliefs and on this one set path the whole time. But these recordings break all of that down. The first thing she says is how stupid she feels for trying to replace human mistake and how dumb an idea the gardeners were. She always had a plan, a goal to reach, something to do. But in this recording, we see the opposite of that. She's going to move to Navoko just to see what happens. It feels like all this change is just thrown at us with no explanation, but it's really not. I think that when Jules first came to the clock tower is when this change all started to happen. But Edea just kind of kept it to herself. She didn't let anybody see it. That kind of carefree attitude started to rub off on her, but she didn't decide to show it until now. Jules sees this too, and I think it inspires her to change a little bit as well. Because shortly after, Levi calls, and she just makes the big decision.
You don't have to be perfect to be Clockwinder. The Clockwinder can't fix the tree. There's always some threat. If it's not salt water, it's dehydration or parasitic wasps.
What?
All we can do is buy time. Keep the gears turning until the next Clockwinder comes along. That's enough. It has to be.
Jules?
What?
You said we. All we can do is buy time.
Huh. Guess I did.
So, does that mean?
I think it does.
So, what's the plan, Clockwinder Jules?
Oh, no, ew. That makes me feel 1,000,000 years old.
Better get used to it.
There's only one room left. This one without a name. Here we get brought up face to face with the inner workings of the clock tower, and we're shown a map. We kind of get to choose where to go, but it's like Jules says.
But there's no rush. We've got a visit to make along the way.
The pump gets to work, the roots retract, the engine starts, and the tree lifts off like a rocket ship. And that's it. That's how the story ends. A story about human connection and innovation, where we can see the consequences of letting our work or grudges take hold of us, but one that also lets us know it's never too late to fix what's broken. This story is fantastic in my opinion. Shakespeare shit over here. But it's not the only thing that makes this game fantastic. That's where our next section comes in, gameplay. We've all played the typical VR game. Shooters, social games, arcade games, whatever. And for sure, everything you play is gonna have something unique that makes it fun and enjoyable. But let me tell you dude, the Last Clockwinder takes that and cranks it to 100. It is truly one of a kind, and something this game masters is its interactability. We'll start with the obvious and get the big rant out of the way. The robots, super fucking cool. This is something I haven't seen any other game do, and the Last Clockwinder nails it. Watching all the little U's work together to put out a final product is super satisfying. And being able to put together these big factories, just one guy at a time, it only adds to it. But I wanted to think more about why it's fun, what's the appeal. To somebody who's already played the game, it's obvious why, but impossible to explain. I think it's because it's very connectable. I feel like in every other puzzle game, you're sort of given tools to solve the puzzles. In the Last Clockwinder, you don't get shit. You are the tool. And this is something that only can be done in VR. There's no other medium of gaming that allows you to take your real life movements and put them into the game. And the cloning mechanism really takes advantage of this and what VR can do to make something just totally new. I also love just how you move between rooms. Not only is the globe a great way to avoid laser menus, but having the floor actually drop down and swap out it's just neat. And it allows the devs to take this really small area you're in, give it a ton of detail, and still have it feel like there's so much to explore. On the other hand, not a huge fan of the recordings. The actual content of them, I love. I think the story is beautiful, 10 out of 10. But telling the story through the recordings, it's kind of just like cliche. Like, you see it in every game. And I feel like there was a lot of potential to tell the story in other ways. Like, every recording except for 2 take place in the past. And like, you're literally in a magic clock tower. How cool would it have been if you got to like go back in time and watch these scenarios play out instead of just listening to them? And I understand that that would add a tremendous amount of work for the devs and why they would not do that. But once again, the recordings, it's just something we've seen before. But we will stay on this topic of recordings and move on to the pacing of the game. I would say this game does a lot right, but above all else, it gets the pacing perfect. I only played through the game once for this recording, and it only took me about 5 hours, but for all 5 hours, not once was I bored, confused, stuck, grinding anything at all. It was just smooth sailing the whole time. The fruit harvesting rooms are designed perfectly, where it takes just the right amount of skill that by the time you're like kind of done getting everything wrapped up, you've got way more than enough fruit to move on. I never had to just like wait around and wait for my system to produce enough fruit for anything. Like, as soon as I'm done with a room, I've got everything I need to just move on. And the story is dished out in a great way as well. You'll get like 1 or 2 recordings every room where you can learn a lot of like new stuff, and then maybe a Levi call where Jules will give a little more insight, a little more analysis into what's going on. During my playthrough, I never felt like the story was rushed or like I was missing pieces. I was always like curious about what would happen next, but never left on a cliffhanger. You are spoon-fed the lore, but it's big bites, so who cares? I think splitting up the story into like 3 objectives is smart too. It gave me more motivation to play other than just learning more about the story. It really helped to like break things up too, providing good stopping points to like take breaks or whatever. I'll circle back to my first point. I really don't think the pacing here would be as good as it is if it wasn't for the level design. A lot of the rooms share the same premise, either harvest fruit or make seeds for fruit. And then obviously what makes each room interesting is what fruit you're harvesting. But that's more than enough. Each fruit needs to be handled in its own way, whether it's because it'll pop if you hold it too long or because it floats away. Giving each fruit its own way to interact with it is what makes these puzzles feel unique and challenging. And then taking all these mechanics and combining them in the laboratory rooms is a great way to build on what you've learned. And then being able to do whatever you want in any loop just adds another layer to the puzzles. The rooms are really like a blank canvas. They do nudge you towards a specific solution, but never lay out a straight path for you. Like a good example of this is here in the blusher farm. The level is designed with the input really close to the blusher plant. And they did this on purpose so we would just place the blushers in the input and move on. But if I wanted to shoot this shit from the balcony like an NBA player, I totally can. And once again, it's that creativity and that freedom that makes these puzzles so interesting. And then to tie it back into the pacing, when I said I never had to wait around for fruit to be harvested, it's mostly thanks to these iPads in the corner. In every room, there's a goal to produce a certain amount of fruit with a certain amount of clones. And they are optional, but I would encourage everyone to try them out because they sort of serve as like the second half of the puzzle. And the whole time you're trying to meet these requirements, you're still harvesting fruit. So by the time you get there, you've got everything you need to move on. Hence why the pacing's good. These goals also add a ton of difficulty to the puzzles. Without them, really the only problem you have to solve is like, how do I move this fruit? But putting these limitations on yourself now force you to think about how can I move this fruit efficiently? And then also having the goals be optional allows players to pick their difficulty. In some rooms, I would do like all 3 tiers because I wanted that challenge. In others, I skipped them entirely because it was just too hard. I would say that the level design is consistently great throughout the whole game. And then not only does the Last Clockwinder nail that gameplay factor, it's got great vibes too. If you're this far in the video, you've definitely seen the art style in this game. Beautiful. It's got like this futuristic but modest look. And then the warm colors and plants everywhere just make it feel really homely. It's nice. This paired with the music, oh my, dude, the music rocks. It perfectly matches the vibe. And it does this thing where like as you start adding clones to your systems, more and more layers of the music start to come in. And it just adds a little more feeling of progression as you add more gardeners. It's a great touch. The story integration is kind of non-existent in this game. but not in a bad way. To me, the recordings we find along the way feel more like a B plot than anything else. It does add a lot of context to like the fruit throw-in, clock tower saving arc, but there's not really a whole lot of overlap. It kind of feels like, here's your main goal, to save the tree, and as you work towards that, we're going to show you little bits of a separate timeline. So, the gameplay never changes the story, and vice versa, the story never changes the gameplay. I know nowadays everybody's looking for games like Baldur's Gate with 6 million different endings, and it's all up to you, you gotta make the decisions. But this game is really just focused around telling one story really well. And usually, when you have this disconnect of story and gameplay, it feels like what you do in the game doesn't have a lot of meaning, doesn't have a lot of influence. But The Last Clockwinder, as always, avoids this problem. The story doesn't directly change the gameplay, but it does indirectly by giving us tools to give our actions impact. I'll explain. Like I said earlier, the story really just gives more context to what we're doing, and that context is key. In this case, it makes it really easy for us to kind of connect the dots and then give our gameplay meaning, instead of like just doing that directly. For example, right in the beginning we were told that the clock tower means a lot to Adia and Jules. It was their home for years and they love it. And we're told that it's sinking. Instantly we connect the dots. Oh no, we don't want that to happen. We don't want to destroy these people's homes. I gotta fix that. I want to fix that. And that right there is us taking what we know, putting it together, and using that to motivate our actions in game. I guess I could have just said that example in the beginning and not waste all this time. Damn. Well, we all know I saved the worst for last, so let's go over what didn't play out so great. The first thing that comes to mind is the globe. I love the idea of it, but it straight up just did not work. Whenever I used it, there was like a 50% chance it would just bug out and disappear. And then God forbid you move the globe without picking up the wire first. Gone. You have to go back to the main menu and reload your save just to change rooms, just to play the game again. If you're careful, nothing will happen. You kind of learn how to work around it, but you spend a lot of time changing rooms, and kind of being kicked out of the game like that just breaks immersion. It's horrible. I feel like that's something that should have just been more polished, you know? It's the main way you move around. So I just feel like it should be better. And then, for whatever reason, the game thought I was rocking a meta headset. It showed me like icons for Quest controllers, the finger tracking never worked, and it locked my game at like 40 FPS, which I guess that's what my Quest would have run at. I have no idea. At first I thought it was a problem with Steam VR, but no, it sees my Beyond just fine. And so does every other game I play, so I have no idea what happened here. It wasn't game breaking, and I had no idea how to fix it, so I just dealt with it. Wasn't a big deal. And the real problem I have with it is because like right before I finished the game, it suddenly realized, oh yeah, no, you're using a big screen Beyond, sure. And then it bricked all my clones. Thankfully, wasn't a big deal for me. All I had left to do was like click a couple buttons and then the game would end. But if I was in the middle of my playthrough, dude, and that happened, dude, it would have been over. This is a niche problem I don't think anyone else has ever run into, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway. Next point I want to make, this game, zero replayability at all. I sort of already went over this. The story never changes, the gameplay never changes. You play through it once and you know what's going to happen if you play again. I might log in a couple more hours trying to complete all like the little iPad quests, but after that I'll probably never touch it again, despite how much I love this game. The game was built to just have one story, to have one playthrough, so I'm not upset about it. And then overall, these are all things that like, they don't remove too much from my experience, and they don't really change my overall opinion about the game, but they are still important to go over. But now I want to take a step back, and I want to look at the game as a whole, and answer our question, what makes The Last Clockwinder so good? Well, I think it has a lot to do with the beautiful story, interactive gameplay, masterful level design, music and art that just sets the vibe, and game mechanics you'll find nowhere else. All encased in this medium that really makes this one of a kind, and an experience you'll never forget. This is where I'm gonna... My microphone died as I was recording the outro, and I'm now re-recording this almost, 11 months later? I have no idea what I said in the original. Anyway, thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Hang on, I remember this part. Check out this shirt, dude. This shit is fire. Royal Coda, bomb-ass band. Check them out.